This, for many, is the incomparable St. Stephen's College of New Delhi. Here, the sharpest minds are reared and traditions evidently born. A mere 125 years following 1881, we see the dawn of a very new generation, one driven and motivated openly by an age of information and commerce, but more notably by techno-metal, R&B and even grunge. St. Stephen's is literally bursting with students today and celebrating a phenomenal occasion, a harmony of generations and attitudes that could invigorate the youngest of rascals and even the oldest of fogies. This is indeed a marvelous world we share, one to fit an equal eternity within, one to cherish, and one almost all of us have utterly loved. Now, it's natural to envision St. Stephen's as a sort of watertight fishbowl, made of prisms or kaleidoscopic mirrors that seem to present the whole world as if it were in a frenzy, awakening us to truths we never knew and other things we've only heard about and never tried. A normal Stephanian is, however, a reasonably distant individual. The rest of the university, even today, is not involved in our transparent yet rather private lives, and hence our first question of sorts. Are we really that elitist?
Well, it has changed enormously. I mean, it's changed socially. The social pyramid is considerably flattened, whereas before very elite students. Now there are students of many different kinds, and of course women have added to the complexity. Not that that has flattened the social pyramid, but it has made it much more complex.
But before more of that, here's a little trivia, a little something you could latch onto in the college handbook. Why must we call ourselves Stephanians? That is, with an A. It's St. Stephen's College, so why say Stephanian? As fortune would have it, there is indeed some method at work here. The martyr St. Stephen lived in the time of the Hellenic rule of the early decades AD, and Stephanos in Greek alluded to a grandiose gold crown. Ring any bells? But it doesn't end just there. Almost any sportsy, or even the class nerd perhaps, will be able to wax eloquent about the other symbol of the college emblem. The 5 points of this star are supposed to represent India. Coloured martyrs red inside, it pays tribute to the first Christian martyr, St. Stephen of AD 36. And the star is edged in Cambridge blue, reminiscent of course of the seminal Cambridge mission. With the Reverend Samuel Scott Allnut as founder and first principal, it was on the 1st of February 1881 that the previously existing St. Stephen's School commenced university classes at the Sheesh Mahal of Chandni Chowk, home to a vizier of the last Mughal emperor. Merely 8 years later, however, college shifted to a brand new building at Kashmiri Gate, and it was perhaps here that 3 renowned inscriptions became synonymous with the college's philosophy. Ad Dei Gloriam, or to the glory of God, Satyameva Vijayate Nanritam, or victory to the truthful, and Jesus said, I am the light of the world. All traditions that have shaped the present 65-year-old edifice at University Enclave, a place which so many of us call home.
Ask ourselves the question, should we be using our privilege only to feather our nests? I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't be feathering our nests. Only to feather our nests, or should we be using this opportunity that we have been given to turn the silver spoon with which we were born in our mouths into gold, to doing something larger for the community that we belong to, for the nation which is ours, and for the future of those who are yet to come.
Meeting old boys and luminaries at this year's Foundation Day, I witnessed Stephanians, old and new, inadvertently create a sense of identification and homeliness that no other institution can probably match.
any two people discover that they're both Stephanians, there's an immediate sort of recognition and acceptance of each other. There are many education institutions, obviously, which have, but I don't think there is one, certainly in India, which has quite the same bonding and sense of belonging. And it's absolutely gorgeous. You come out here and you have somebody who was in college in the mid-30s, and there are people who graduated last year.
Yes, it's downright implausible to visualize a St. Stephen's College without a vast brotherhood of Stephanians who often very literally light up like stars every time they meet each other. And this degree of bonding with college and old peers is something I find bizarre and yet profound and of course very unique.
Walter George was the architect who designed the present buildings of college. And I think this architecture has a lot to do with the kind of relationship that people develop with the campus and with the college, of course. The corridors and the spaces that have been created in the college are such that after you've moved in them for 3 to 5 years, they begin to reverberate in the corridors of your mind. And particularly if you happen to be a resident junior member, that experience, that relationship, that interfusing of activities and talents, I think that's what creates this great bonding.
The college is a spectacle for anyone who comes here for the very first time. No institution matches it for class, of course, but then there's timeless architecture like this. An elegant church with simple yet effective spaces, an edifice with the neatest design, perfect arches, vast open courts, plenty of greenery to sit or even lie on, accessible corridors, red brick walls, hybrid domes. A myriad of colonial and indeed Mughal traditions come together as a great campus that enmesh the most essential rooms and spaces in a compact area and system.
Look up. Alright, do a crow now. Do a crow now. Clap your wings. Are these wings on? I said wings. Alright, do a peacock now.
Now it's known that college has an awesome reputation for academics. But personally for me, I think the most joyous part of attending classes in college was, well, attendance. I mean, who on earth, which common person would want to attend, say, an 840 out of the happiness of their heart? There were certainly some excellent classes with fascinating professors. And then the rest, I think, was really just for the ecstatic bliss of attendance. I do believe that of late, the rise of the internal assessment ogre has sounded the death knell for many of my kin. On the flip side, however, and jokes apart, here's a system that makes the tyranny of exams a bit more thorough and perhaps less unreliable too.
Course books had very little of an impact on me. From what I remember, most of us spent our time gazing out of the window or, staring blankly at the walls and, that kind of thing. Because these books you had to study. Whereas the books you read outside were books that you wanted to read, and you read it because you kept turning the page.
Well, I suppose you must have gone to class. I don't remember much of classes, but I presume we must have been to class at some point in time. I remember with great memory, this gentleman used to teach economics, and people from all the universities used to come to his classes. Just because of the power of
his delivery, the content and the power and the way he wrote it, it was oratory in many ways.
I was introduced to the rigor of, academic discipline. There was an excellent faculty which taught us, and I valued that more and more as the older I get.
This was the type of life we had when we were so close to the professors and the professors were so close to us that it was like a family. I remember a large number of professors who really gave me some values in my life.
I think it was fairly equally balanced between me and them. Probably, and rightly so, the balance tipped in favor of me. It's really the student's responsibility. The faculty are simply there to guide you. But there were people who shaped my interests, who helped me understand when a subject is new to you. And then after that, you've learned to walk, and then you're away.
There's always a very stimulating atmosphere in the academic section of the campus. The class and tutorial rooms aside, every once in a while, some society, big or small, will come out with a journal, a newsletter, or some other sort of literature that will lie in enormous bundles next to the today's engagement board, only to completely vanish within hours, be discussed in some measure by all circles, and even become stale news by night time.
I think I learned much more from my peers during my 3 years in St. Stephen's than from all the poor teachers who attempted to batter their heads against the wall of my brain. We spent hours and hours and hours just lying around the lawns there and talking.
Indeed, for without the power that is casual conversation, college just wouldn't be what it is today. It really is in those first few months of first year that freshers are thrust upon the open table and jolted to life, so to speak. The intra-college play competition, the freshers' debate, various planning forum, IDG talks, blood donation camps, etc. But the elections to the Students' Union Society got me most wired up, I remember. Now, you're not likely to know any of these candidates well in first year, first term, and therefore I remember being rudely overwhelmed as a fresher. But nonetheless, this year was, well, wow, raw drama.
It was a very distinct polarization this time. It was on the basis of women versus men students. And in this I mean that women students came out in support of a woman candidate. And I don't hesitate saying that my vote bank was women students.
A woman president-elect for the very first time is truly a marvel in what wasn't so long ago an all-boys college.
I graduated in 74 and women were allowed in 75. So I think there's no question, it's some kind of cosmic conspiracy, which meant to deprive us, except that there was never any shortage of girls hanging around St. Stephen's.
So there were girls from Miranda House, our friends from Miranda House, IP, LSR, they used to come and visit us. There was no issues.
It was the safest place in the university, and aside from being in the classroom, they were everywhere else, sprawled elegantly on the lawns, loitering around the dhaba. They were everywhere else.
We heard or read in the papers or whatever that there were going to be girls in St. Stephen's, and there were 4 or 5 of us who promptly got together and got drunk. What's the fall of this, the last bastion of male dominance?
In the old days, and maybe even today, the Miranda back gate was the hot spot where all red-blooded male Stephanians would boldly go where no man had been before. Today, it's an obtuse thought to some extent. With a great atmosphere on campus, there's promise for only more, and without a doubt, all this needs exceptional support, and is getting it, as the elections appeared to have shown. A true impersonation of typical Stephanian witticism, if you will, is the grand institution of cooler talk, a wallpaper started in the early 60s and revived not so long ago.
It was felt that the college needed an internal thing for news and views and things like this. It also needed a place where students could express themselves, a kind of zany magazine. And I think it served that purpose. And you see, the great thing here is the college supports all that kind of zany thing, as long as it's not too zany.
They say that when the founders were first thinking of a name, they hit upon the blacksmith, in honor of the anthem Khushwant Singh ensured all Stephanians know, probably as well as the national anthem. When the name was rejected, the name Cooler Talk emerged as a tribute to the newly installed water cooler, a favourite spot for ragging, and at the time called, well, the blacksmith. But there's more than just KT. It's not like campus has turned drab or anything. For instance, there's the riotous tradition of spice, probably the closest St. Stephen's has gotten to mindless subversion. Here we see a spice up during Harmony.
Spice was a sporadic kind of thing. It was a cyclo-styled sheet in the days when cyclo-styling existed. And there was no periodicity, unlike KT, Cooler Talk, which came out fairly regularly, and was printed. This was just cyclo-styled at the whim of the editor. And the Secretary Woodhouse Society used to be the editor of Spice as well, ex officio.
Those were the days though, really. In hindsight, at least. They seem to have been tremendous and enlightening. Everybody kept each other so busy. There were talks all the time that made us question and think about ourselves and our surroundings. The seminar room became a thoroughfare of activity for everybody. And here we have a community where nobody but professors call them day scholars and resident scholars. Anybody normal would divide college into shady day skis and equally shady resis, shady artsies and shady sciences, and in so many other ways to boost healthy competition or something. What still commands respect for the student body today, though, is still dedicated work and commitment just like before. And it's perhaps the extensive range of audacious societies at college that truly distinguish a Stephanian everywhere outside. Sport can't altogether be excluded in this respect either. There are formidable teams in all sports at college, especially women's basketball today. And although usually typecast by many, sports sees always put a proud smile on our faces and give us something to cheer for and be excited about. Watching your team in full form on the court can make you very passionate about a simple game.
We had a very good culture of on the basketball teams. It was not the boys team and the girls team, it was one team. Though we'd play separate matches. And wherever we went, it would be together, you know. So other teams were envious of us that we were always together, we were so bonded.
Nothing in the world beat watching cricket in the JCR. Now that was an experience. Sweaty palms, loud gasps of shock, and otherwise wide, unwavering eyes braced for disaster, tuning out even the tick-tock of the ping-pongs nearby. The atmosphere was just electric, and everything peripheral just ceased to exist because Dhoni nearly got stumped. I loved the times when your best pals alone could elate you completely and truly engage you. But then there were even times when the last thing you wanted was company, and you slept through the evening, through classes, or even just read a good book in a corner, dreaming of clouds and cabbages and kings. And I really love those times too. But when the time comes to fraternize, this corner is truly legendary for the dhaba and cafe. The cafe, beyond doubt, is probably the most visited place on campus. Day scholars, resis, lecturers, sportsies, sciences, you name it, and they'll be gathered in the cafe to munch on scrambled eggs, coffee or mince, chat a while and then just push off.
I found that if you left word with someone, with a couple of people at the cafe, that you wanted to meet somebody, they would drift out and inform whoever it is you wanted to meet, because the college is not that big. It was really the center point around which college revolved. Ideally, it should have been the library. It wasn't. It was really the cafe. And of course, it was very reasonably priced. The quality was excellent, which is a hard thing to do when you're serving mince meat, particularly, don't forget.
The dhaba hasn't the largest menu, unlike the cafe, but it's the closest you could get to, say, fast food on campus at any rate. It's followed St. Stephen's from Kashmiri Gate and was set up by a man endearingly and infamously known by generations of Stephanians.
Sukhya was an institution. I mean, he was really an institution. Everybody was scared of him because he had a terrible temper and a terrible foul tongue. I mean, the worst abuses he would give you, your ancestry would be plagued because you owed him money, you constantly owed him money.
The dhaba makes the area outside the cafe the perfect place to just gasp, even with Sukhya's son Rohtas, or have a society meet, or even sit under the dhaba tree and thaw with interesting conversation and gulab jamun. But here's some real food for thought, some more trivia if you will. How is it that no other institution in the country is so particular about calling commonplace things such fanciful names? For instance, here it's the cafe. Call it a canteen and you'll warrant a riot of sorts. Hostels are certainly inept compared to the grand college residence at St. Stephen's. Karamcharis are more than often called gyps. Some would say the only non-Cambridgian gyps. Professors and students would most likely be addressed as senior members and junior members. They're all really Cambridgian traditions that have followed from England and other novel ideas that appear to have forged us all in miraculous ways.
उनसे नहीं आपसे बात कर रही हूँ हटिए यहाँ से लेडीज सीट है कहाँ लिखा है वहाँ लिखा है दिख नहीं रहा है वहीं बैठ जा तमीज नहीं है आप में आपके घर में माँ बहन नहीं है क्या माँ बहनें तो हैं पर घर वाली नहीं है बैठना है पीछे गोदी में आके बैठ जा आजा मेरी गोदी में बैठ जा आजा मेरी गोदी
But if you ask me, this is where it's at. Nothing in the world brings it all together like the theatre. The stage has a very, very special place at St. Stephen's, and I think glorifies and openly cherishes a culture very unique to our institution. For instance, when is the last time you heard, say, an Indian institution have, and I quote, the only Shakespeare society east of the Suez? I mean, ours is a community that treasures our classical traditions, our senior members, and a past we all inadvertently share.
What is important is that a student is not just a student here. When he is admitted, he is not admitted to a course or the college. He becomes an heir to, say, 125 years of the heritage of Stephania, of an institution which is based on faith, fellowship and fruitful study.
For me, nothing could have matched that shake sock phenomenon. In the end, the members really became like this big family. Few even stuck with theatre later on and joined this extraordinary league of alumni who practice in some measure even today.
Where are you going? Where do you dwell? Are you a married man or a bachelor? Answer every man directly. Tear him, tear him! Come, branch, ho! Fire, branch!
That was the springboard, really, for my future career. And everything I did came back to those first years at St. Stephen's and the things we did. And it was just such a marvelous experience.
Now, this year's traditional annual Shakespeare play dumbfounded even the pseudos. The tragedy of Julius Caesar, in its glory, in its sublimity and grandeur, in a circus.
Alamaya,
Welcome to the Shakespeare Society's production of Julius Caesar. There'll be two acts and there'll be a 5-minute gap in between both acts.
According to his virtue, let us use him, with all respect and rights of burial.
So this friend of mine said, come on, let's do a scene. I was Cassius and he was Brutus. And he said, let's do it differently. So we said, differently means what? He says, we'll do it to jazz. So it was, the lines were put into hip language, the so-called cool language of the time, and had John Coltrane and Miles Davis in the background. And there we were clicking our fingers and, being sort of very hip as Cassius and Brutus, plotting the murder of Caesar.
And yet, 4 decades later, we have a lion-taming Anthony, a blue-haired Brutus, tent house politics, and the astounding murder of the ringmaster himself, Julius Caesar. A celebration of passion and love of the stage that tingle our sensations and lay doubts to rest. Cheers to Cephania, and here's to the promise of an ever grander future. And so, into that gate they shall enter, and in that house they shall dwell, where there shall be no cloud nor sun, no darkness nor dazzling, but one equal light, no foes nor friends, but one equal communion and identity, no ends nor beginnings, but one equal eternity.